Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dan Doolin from Integrity Data. I'm your host of today's webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about managing paid leave, specifically mandatory sick time in Dynamics GP. And we're going to talk about how that can be a positive thing. As you saw in our promotion to the webinar, back in the day, it used to be that sick time was a benefit that you offered to employees as a benefit, and they were happy to receive that. That time is changing to where now sick leave in a lot of areas is a compliance effort that you as the employer are responsible for managing. So you might be doing that today in a way that's not very fun, but we're going to show you how to do that very easily within Dynamics GP and the tools available to do that. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's take a quick look at our agenda. First, we're going to do a quick welcome and introduction. We're going to talk about the trends in mandated paid sick time, kind of the general trends, where it's popping up, and so on. We're going to talk about the mandated sick time compliance effort and how to accomplish that within Dynamics GP. We're going to spend the majority of our time today doing a demonstration of Integrity Data's comprehensive leave manager tool within Dynamics GP and show you how to manage your sick time compliance efforts utilizing Comprehensive Leave Manager within Dynamics GP. If you have questions, put those in the question and answer box in the GoToWebinar console, and I'll answer all of those at the end of the webinar. And just a heads up, during the webinar, I'm going to ask you a couple questions also, so be ready to participate in those. Just as another housekeeping item, the webinar today is being recorded, so we will make it available after the webinar in case you want to pass it along to some of your coworkers or friends, or both. All right, let's do a quick welcome and introduction. If you're not familiar with Integrity Data, we've been around a while. There are more than 10,000 organizations worldwide that utilize the technology that we create to improve their business processes, specifically in the area of payroll and human resources. For those of you in the Microsoft Dynamics GP channel, which is probably all of you, we work very closely with Microsoft, as you know, and to continue to enhance the payroll and HR offerings from Microsoft in an effort to make sure that you have great technology to operate your business in the most efficient manner for many years. Specifically, Integrity Data is the author of the core payroll extension features that you all utilize within the payroll module of Dynamics GP. That's the overtime rate manager for doing the blended overtime rates if you use that, deductions and arrears, and the payroll integration to payables. Are also authors of the HRP extended pack, which includes advanced payroll, advanced HR, benefit self-service, and PTO manager. If you need more information on those, Microsoft has that information, or you can reach out to your Microsoft partner and support partner as well. You'll notice the PTO managers and that HR payroll extended pack. We're going to talk about that a little bit as we talk about the mandated sick time also today. So keep that in mind. All right, general requirements of mandated sick time, legislated sick time, whatever you'd like to refer to it as. Now, we're seeing this pop up all over the United States, and it's popping up in a few different ways. Traditionally, it had been, I think the first one we worked with was the city of Seattle, and that goes back probably 6 or 7 years ago. And since metropolitan areas have added legislation, states have added legislation, specific counties, specific cities, there's all kinds of legislation out there. So it started kind of on the West Coast, or we see it on the East Coast. Now we're seeing it pop up, for example, in Cook County, Minneapolis. The state of Michigan recently went into effect earlier this spring. So this is becoming a compliance requirement that almost all employers are having to deal with. If you have employees in an area that is impacted by mandated sick time, then you as the employer need to be compliant with that. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's not like it's a nice benefit to offer employees. It's now a compliance effort. So a little bit more at stake in your management of that effort going forward. The general requirements and trends, typically it's accrue 1 hour of sick time for every 30 hours that the employee works. Now, obviously, this is different because this applies to all employees. It's not just your full-time employees. Hey, you're a full-time employee, you get vacation time, you get sick time, so on and so forth. This is all employees. So if you hire an employee to work in the restaurant, part-time, you have no idea how long they're going to be there. You're going to have to keep track of this for them as you employ them. So accrue 1 hour for every 30 hours worked. That's a general rule. We see 40. I think there's one state out there that has 50. There's a state of Michigan has 35. So it's generally in that range. So you've got to keep track of those hours that the employee works and accrue the time accordingly. It's geographically based where the employee is working, even if you don't have an office or even a specific location or site within that area. If the employee is working there, for example, driving a truck, you still would need to be compliant with that. Most of the laws have a 30 to 90 day waiting period, which means the employee starts earning the time, but you don't have to let them use it until they pass the end of that waiting period. Some states allow employers to limit sick time use. So you can limit the use to a certain number of hours each year. Limit on how much an employee can use in the calendar or accrual year. Limit on how much an employee can accrue in the calendar or accrual year. Limit how much time an employee can carry over from one year to the next. And typically those are all running kind of in the 40 to 50 hour range. 40 and 48 are pretty common numbers for those maximum limits. You're not required to pay out the unused time when the employee terminates. That's good for the employer. Employee could have several sick balances at one time. And we're going to look at an example today of an employee that works in multiple areas and accrues multiple sick time balances at once. That's common when you have state and local laws in effect at the same time. So you could theoretically and literally be working one day, earning sick time in one jurisdiction, work across the street the next day and earn sick time in another jurisdiction. So that's where it gets complicated, and especially in states like California where they have so many of these laws in effect. The sick time law applies to full-time, part-time, and/or temporary employees. There are a few laws that have exemptions. That's pretty rare. Usually it's everybody. So you have to check that out for each one. Groups are sometimes subject to other policies such as collective bargaining agreements. Does not apply to all employers. Sometimes very small employers, less than 10 employees, less than 20 employees, are exempt from some of those laws. And it's obviously becoming more common. Another trend that I don't have listed here is, and it's just something to watch out for, and that some employers take advantage of, and that's the option to preload the time. So for example, rather than accruing 1 hour for 30 hours worked throughout the year, you could preload the employee with 24 hours at the beginning of the year to prevent you from having to do the accrual. So there's risk to that. If the employee works less than, I think it's I did the math the other day, 720 hours, double check me on that. If they work more than that, you did okay. If they work less than that, then you gave them too much time. But that's a risk you take for not having to do the calculation. Again, options for employers. A lot of times I get the question, and we've even put it in previous webinars, of resources to go to for information on these laws. Certainly you can check with us. We try to keep information posted on our blog posts on our website, integrity-data.com. Sometimes we struggle keeping up with all of them. We use some national resources. I think the one called abetterplace.org. As is the case with so many other things, many times your best resource is the Google. So I used it the other day. So here's the advantage of that, is that many times if you would Google Michigan sick time law, you're going to get a few resources listed there. So you can kind of validate. And sometimes you'll see discrepancies in interpretation of the law. So if you get the local chamber of commerce, a local organization that's reviewed it, or a legal opinion related to that law, then that's a good resource to utilize. If you have an internal legal counsel, probably good to have them review it as well. So that's my short speech on resources available to help you maintain your compliance. Certainly we do the best that we can to help, but we're not ERISA attorneys either. So, all right. Let's take a look at Dynamics GP accrual options and and then we're going to get into a demonstration. So let's take a look here. So you have some options within Dynamics GP. So you have, well, Microsoft Excel isn't necessarily within Dynamics GP, but we'll call it a Microsoft product. So there you go. Doesn't really work for the sick time just because it's hard to keep it up to date. There's no audit trail. If somebody comes in and asks to look at your records for this on behalf of an employee, if you show them an Excel spreadsheet, that's probably not going to do so well there. Microsoft Dynamics GP payroll accruals within the payroll module just doesn't have the sophistication to be able to do this. So then we end up looking at PTO Manager within Dynamics GP, as well as Integrity Data's Comprehensive Leave Manager. Again, the PTO Manager is a component of the HR Payroll Extended Pack. We're going to talk about that just a little bit, and then we're going to get into the Comprehensive Leave Manager and show you how that can help also. All right, with PTO Manager is physically capable of doing the calculation, the increment of for every 30 hours accrue an hour. But it has severe limitations. The severe limitations are that it could only keep track of one sick time balance for an employee, and the accrual schedule gets a little bit wobbly at times, meaning that it's not the most reliable. And there's cost associated to that if you don't have the HR Payroll Extended Pack. So it can do a fair job if you have a few employees in a single location that might need to accrue this time. PTO Manager may not be a bad option. So feel free to take a look at that. On our website, integrity-data.com, if you go to the Comprehensive Leave Manager page, there we also have a comparison chart for all of the leave options within Dynamics GP. And if you want to get into the details on PTO Manager and how it relates to Comprehensive Leave Manager, then there is a recorded webinar there also called PTO versus CLM. Integrity Data is the author of both products. We're not pitting one against the other one. We're just trying to help point out which one works better in which situation. So feel free to take a look at those resources on our website. All right, when we look at Comprehensive Leave Manager, and we're going to jump into a demonstration here in a minute, the key benefits of Comprehensive Leave Manager as it relates to the mandated sick time is that it gives you the ability to track an unlimited number of user-defined leave codes. So you can have an unlimited number of user-defined codes as it relates to vacation, sick time, jury duty, whatever else that you want to track as it relates to paid time off. So when you get into the area of sick time, if you've got employees that are potentially working in multiple jurisdictions and multiple sick time balances, you can keep track of all that information within the Comprehensive Leave Manager, and it will do those calculations for you. As the next bullet indicates, it can track multiple sick time balances per employee. With so many laws in effect currently and more coming, it's very common for employees to have multiple sick time balances because they're moving around into a different, at a store in a different state, or filling in for somebody somewhere else, or working in a different town. It's just the way that it is. So that's something to keep in mind. Multiple accrual rules to support mandated sick time and other complex accruals. So when we talk about Comprehensive Leave Manager, we're focusing on the mandated sick time capabilities, but it can be used for so many more things. So keep that in the back of your head if you've got other plans that you need to figure out how to administer. You do mass assignment and quick assignment capabilities, full transaction history. Full transaction history is important because if your processes get reviewed, or you get an inquiry by a representative of an employee, to say it nicely, they want to see, hey, the person I'm representing thinks you've cheated them out of some sick time. I want to, we need to see the records. You'll have that full transaction history to indicate that. Comprehensive Leave Manager provides additional pay stub fields to support use limits, which comes up in some areas. So a use limit is the option for the employer to limit the use of the sick time in a way that's more strict than the employee balance. Okay, comes up in California a lot. If you have more questions about that, we can answer those offline, but that does come up sometimes. It also gives you the capability, That becomes important because you need to put other data on the check stub other than just the available balance. Comprehensive Leave Manager has those features built into it and will help you manage that process. All right, accrue correct sick time based on the pay code used. So for example, if an employee is working in multiple areas, you can indicate which sick time the employee should accrue for that time that they worked in that area by using a distinct pay code for that. And we're going to walk through an example of that in the demonstration, which is next. But first, you get to answer a couple questions. All right, are you ready? These are not hard questions, didn't require pre-studying. So here you go. The first question, and you'll see it on your screen, mark the answer that best describes you. Do you currently have employees that work in an area that's impacted or where you need to keep track of mandated paid sick time? A couple of options there. Yes, no, not sure. Okay, so take a minute to record your answer that best describes your situation there, and then we'll continue. All right, I'll leave the question open for just a couple more seconds, and then we'll move on to the next one. Okay. All right, the next question is, if you're in that area, in one of those areas, how are you managing that process? We're not managing the process. It's okay, we're not judging here, we're just trying to help. We're doing it in Excel, or you are using another tool within Dynamics GP to do that. Okay, so give a few more seconds to respond to that question. All right, thank you all for participating. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the demonstration. Let me switch over here. All right, somewhere everybody's familiar with Dynamics GP. All right, so what we're going to do within the demonstration is I'm going to walk through a couple of leave codes. And we're going to talk about the key elements of the leave codes as it relates to mandated sick time. And then we're going to walk through a transaction. I'm going to show you some transactions that I've pre-entered for an employee working in multiple areas. And we're going to start to go through the payroll process and show you how that's accruing for that employee. So we're going to walk through a very specific example here. And we're going to do this in about 10 minutes or so. All right, so here we are in Dynamics GP. We're going to take a closer look at how Comprehensive Leave Manager from Integrity Data can help you with this process. All right, so I'm going to go over to Leave Setup. Okay, this is the Leave Setup window. This is where we define leave codes. And remember, a leave code can be vacation, sick, personal days, jury duty, whatever type of leave you need to track within Dynamics GP. Comprehensive Leave Manager is bolting into the payroll functions of Dynamics GP. So as we process payroll, it's going to run the calculations and have that updated data to appear on the pay stub. All right, so if we look at a couple of options here, you can see I've got some sick time, I've got some PTO time, and I've got some other miscellaneous type of leave codes configured already. We're going to pick on California sick time just as an example. So you'll see that I've got it named here. I've got the leave type of accrual. There's some other leave types like lump sum and comp time that we're not going to focus on today. Let's take a look at the accrual schedule. The accrual schedule is the heart of everything that we're trying to do. So it's going to do the calculation of the time for the employee. So we're going to drill back into that. What you'll notice in the accrual schedule window is that there's a lot going on here. And there are a lot of options within Comprehensive Leave Manager to give it the capabilities to help you accrue all kinds of time and multiple rules, multiple types of leave based on different data elements that an employee might have. For example, years of service, things like that. We're gonna keep this one pretty focused on the leave time. So you'll notice that in my range 1 based on field within Dynamics GP, I've got the option selected for every X hours per calendar year. You could also use for every X hours per calendar year. So this makes it pretty straightforward for all the different types of leave that you might need to administer, specifically the sick time. So for every X hours, it needs to do something. Well, you saw in the trends that in most cases, for example, like state of California, for every 30 hours that an employee works, we need to do something. All right, so we're going to stick with for every X hours. Now this corresponds to the data below. So the range that we're identifying, think of the range as, hey, what data should I really look at to determine if this employee should accrue time? Okay, well, it's looking for an increment of hours. So down below, as I like to say, just like 7th grade algebra, we got to solve for X. Okay, that might make a few of you twitch a little bit. Anyway, so does me sometimes. So what we're doing is filling in for X. So for every 30 hours that the employee works, we're going to do something. And so we've got this calculation factor here field here. Now that calculation factor field gets used a few different ways within Comprehensive Leave Manager, but for the sick time, it's very straightforward. And for every X hours, it's very straightforward. For every 30 hours that the employee works, accrue 1 hour of sick time. It doesn't get much easier than that to set up. Okay, so for example, in Michigan, if we would look at Michigan, it's for every 35. Okay, you just fill in 35 here. That's a different leave code and a different accrual schedule, but it takes you just a couple of minutes to set up within Comprehensive Leave Manager. You'll also notice at the top that the maximum hours based on is a per year maximum accrual. So over the course of the year, the employee can earn 40 hours, and it'll keep track of that. So if the employee earns all of their time in the first few months of the year, fine, but they're not going to go over 40 within a calendar year in this case in the way that I have this configured. Okay, so the accrual is based on, we're just starting at the hire date or the adjusted hire date. I've got the effective date here that turns it on. We're going to calculate this during payroll processing. Here's a 90-day waiting period that's common within the sick leave laws. It says, hey, the employees can start accruing the time right away, but we're not going to make it available to the employee until they pass that probationary period of 90 days. That means it's not going to show up on the check stub. If you do an inquiry, you're not going to see the time that's accrued. You're going to see 0, but you'll see some time in what we call pending. So it's it's going to enforce that all automatically. In the state of California, there's no maximum on the balance. We're limiting the accrual on a per year basis. We're also limiting how much the employee can carry over from 1 year to the next, which is 48 hours. Again, if we check the box here, apply carryover during payroll processing, it's going to calculate that automatically at the end of the year and cut back the employee's balance if it needs to. What's nice about this is you've got all the capabilities to define all the rules. You set it up, apply it to the employees, and it's going to take care of it for you as you process payroll. You won't have to worry about it. All right, the one unique thing up here is that the max taken or maximum use rule, 24 hours within an accrual year. What that indicates is that even though the employee balance might be more than 24 hours, the employer has the option to limit the use to 24 hours. This does impact what the employer typically displays on the pay stub, meaning that you would display 24 instead of whatever the balance is, as long as it's north of 24 hours. Right, down at the bottom, this is really important. These are the earned pay codes and the taken pay codes. You'll notice on the earned pay codes, I've got California hour. So California regular hours. If the employee works in California, they should accrue this sick time. If the employee works somewhere else, it should not accrue this sick time. Okay. When the employee needs to take some of their California sick time, then we're going to pull that out using a pay code and a payroll transaction called California sick time. All right, you've got three things going on here that you could name the same thing and confuse yourself like I would typically do. So you've got the leave code at the top. Okay, that's number one. You've got one pay code at the bottom that indicates that the employee is working in this jurisdiction or this area and needs to accrue this type of time. That's unique, okay? Third, you have another pay code that indicates that the employee is taking this time out of this balance. The employee is scheduled to work in California, they call in sick because they don't feel well, or because the surfing waves are good, or whatever the situation is, they call in sick. We're going to put in 8 hours of California sick time to pull 8 hours out of this balance for the employee. So three things going on here, all codes, one leave code, an earned pay code, and a taken pay code. Okay. All right, let's look at Michigan sick time. Michigan sick time, very similar setup. Okay. Michigan hours going in, Michigan hours coming out. Okay, so Michigan hour, regular hours. I was going to call this MI-reg for regular hours, but I already had it set up. And then Michigan sick time used. All right, so if there's anywhere you can get confused, or I get confused sometimes, is in making sure I've got all the right code set up. All right, so now that we've got the code set up, a few ways to assign them to the employee. Let's go to Tools, Utilities, and this is just remind you that I've been doing this a long time because I'm still navigating the old way here. Leave mass assignment. So I've got these new codes set up like California sick time, and I can assign that to all employees. If I have employees in California in a specific department, position, or class, I can just pick those and hit mark all, okay? So the other option is if you're using the pay code as a unique identifier, assign it to everybody, and then if they work in California and have the California regular hours come through, they're going to earn the time. All right. Another way to do this, employee leave quick assignment. So I pick an employee down the list here, and I can say, all right, this is a new employee. I need to get this employee through their first payroll. We're going to assign them to California sick time, Michigan sick time, and PTO, and be done with it. So a couple ways to assign those leave codes to the employee. All right, now if we look at the employee level, and we're going to pick on, of course, Adam Barr and Fabricam here, we've got California sick time. Okay, it's assigned 0 balance so far. Okay, if we look at Michigan sick time, you can see he's got a balance there, and you can make a few changes at the employee level related to the sick time, but not really anything that you would normally need to adjust. All right, now let's run the employee through payroll. So if we look at payroll transaction entry, and I'll look at this awesome batch that's been created called Dan's batch. I've got the same employee here, and I've got time that the employee worked in Michigan, and I've got time that the employee worked in California, all in the same pay period. Adam Barr, this employee, is assigned to both leave codes. Okay, so he can earn time in California, he can earn time in Michigan. And remember those earned pay codes on the lower left side of the leave code setup window? We had Michigan hour and California hour. So what we can do is run this employee through payroll and start to look at his accruals to see what he's earning in each of those areas. All right, so let's do a build. Okay, select Dan's batch. And we're going to build. Now, during the payroll process, there's really nothing exciting to see from a build report or the calculate report perspective. Okay, so one employee, got hours in both states. So what I'm doing here, rather than, I mean, you all know the payroll process. What we can do is we can go up and we can look at smart lists. Okay, within GP smart lists, I've added the Comprehensive Leave Manager smart lists. So these are available from us. Just contact us. We'll send you the XML file that you can import. Okay, so what's fun about this is that I can look at what's going on just even after the build and the calculate. So let's look at the leave transactions as they're being calculated. So when I look at this smart list, this says after calc, but it's really doing it on the build records. So here's the two types of leave that's accruing for Adam Barr as we're starting to run the payroll. This PTO earned is 1 hour of California sick time, 1 hour of Michigan sick time. Okay, if we would look at the leave summary, I might need to go to the next step on this. Actually, this looks like it's got it. If I look at the California sick time, remember the balance was 0. He's earning 1, and his new balance, if we continue through payroll, would be 1. What's nice is with these leave codes, and these leave codes are, these smart lists are available for a lot of areas of comprehensive leave manager. So you can look at all the leave codes for all the employees. You can look at the leave transactions that have been in play. So when did the employees take time off? Of course, with smart lists, you can filter, you can sort, you can do whatever you want. And this is just part of the comprehensive leave manager product, an additional reporting mechanism that we provide into the application so that you can do what you need to do with it. All right, so let's continue with the, well, we won't go through the whole payroll process just because it's going to calculate. We'll see the updated balance information, and I'm going to show you just for the sake of time where that's at. So let me jump over to the employee again. So we process payroll, everything updates for the employee. We have the updated balances on the pay stub, it posts, and we go from there. Let's look at Adam Barr. Now, from Adam Barr's perspective, if we look at the employee card, we can go to payroll and then go to leave summary. Okay, so here we see in its current state, so this would be posted information. I haven't posted this payroll, so his California sick time is still at 0. Michigan sick time, his remaining balance is 27 hours. Generic mandated sick time, and so on. And then PTO has got some time there also. So when that situation comes up where, hey, the employee comes in and says, hey, I don't know if my balance is right. I think you've gypped me out of some sick time. I don't think you're doing this correctly, and it's the law, and so on and so forth. Double click on this, and it's going to keep track of everything that impacts that employee's balance for that leave code. Okay, so the employee accrued time, the employee took time, accrued time, taken time, anything that impacts that balance. If it was truncated because of a carryover limit or anything like that, all of that's going to be recorded here so that you as the employer can answer those questions for the employee. If you have any exceptions related to that, if you need to make any adjustment, didn't record hours correctly, whatever the situation might be, you've always got the option to create an adjustment or document a change to the employee balance by using create a transaction. And that will also be stored in the employee's transaction history for that leave code as well. All right, again, if you have questions, feel free to put those in the question and answer box. So what we've done is we created a couple leave codes, new sick time leave codes, assigned those to the employee, made sure we had the right earned pay codes and taken pay codes set up and assigned to the employee, started the process payroll, used the smart list to just kind of check it along the way as we go through payroll. That's a great testing tool just as you're implementing, just to make sure that it's calculating correctly. I had a problem with California sick time as I was working and preparing for the webinar. It wasn't functioning correctly, but I could use that smart list instead of having to go all the way through the payroll process. It's just a great tool. All right, let's go ahead and jump back to the PowerPoint and wrap it up. In the PowerPoint slide deck that you'll get as a follow-up to this, there are some slides in here that just highlight specific areas of comprehensive leave manager and what they're used for. So it's just helpful, a helpful resource for review as you go through it. All right, at this point, I'm gonna take a look at the questions If you would like more information, if you have other questions, you can always check out integrity-data.com/solve-leave, or just look for a comprehensive leave manager. You can always search on our website to look for articles and knowledge base components to help answer specific questions. I want to go ahead and take a look at the question box. You guys are being, oops, no, that's the question box. It's blank. You guys are going easy on me today. I appreciate it, but I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Okay, I'll keep an eye on the question box. In the meantime, feel free to read our blog posts, watch videos, customer stories, check our value calculators on our website just to see if the comprehensive leave manager would make good sense for you. We have a ton of videos out there, testimonials, feature videos, user guides. You can download the software out there even. It will work for you on a limited basis. And then you do have to pay at some point. But we're happy to help you understand if Comprehensive Leave Manager is the right product to help you manage the mandated sick time. We've been doing this a long time related to leave, managing leave and Dynamics GP, and related to the sick time specifically. So we're happy to help and happy to give you our honest answers to your questions. But again, you're letting me off easy on the questions. All right, if there are no questions, I'll continue to watch that in case one pops in. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna throw in a question for you. So a common question that we get is, first one is always, can the sick leave be put on the pay stub? The answer is yes. Using Comprehensive Leave Manager, we have some tools there to do. It does take a little bit of work from a perspective of formatting the reports, but you can, we have instructions on how to do that, and our team is certainly capable of helping you do that. Another question that comes up sometimes is, does Integrity Data provide updates when a new leave law goes into effect? The short answer to that is no. The longer answer is that we try to provide as much information as possible and pay attention and alert through social media or knowledge-based articles or webinars or whatever, however we can, that new leave laws are coming into effect and to watch out for those. We don't do anything software related unless it's a feature that's required by a new leave law, and we evaluate that and put it into our development queue if necessary. But we don't provide updates into the product whenever a new law comes into effect. All right, there, I gave myself some questions and gave you some answers to those questions. Oh, Susan chimed in with a question. What is the cost? The cost you can see on our website. The cost is based on the number of employees that you have within Dynamics GP. And you'll see that it's a license plus annual enhancement pricing model. And you'll see that information on the website. If you go to over on the right-hand side, go to integrity-data.com, click on software, and then under leave management, comprehensive leave manager, or if you just search for Integrity Data Comprehensive Leave Manager, it will come up at the top of your search results, and you will see the pricing there. And if you'd like a specific quote, Susan, please feel free to let us know, and we'll be happy to provide that based on the number of employees that you have. Speaking of which, feel free to reach out to us as you have questions. Again, our website, integrity-data.com. Follow us on the Twitter at Integrity Data. Feel free to follow myself on Twitter at Dan Doolin. Sometimes it's actually work related. Or feel free to reach out to us by phone, 888-786-6162, or you can reach us at sales@integrity-data.com. And one of our great team members will be happy to connect with you and answer your questions and just help you make a good business decision about managing your mandated sick time in Dynamics GP. And it doesn't have to be as hard as you think it might be, or maybe as hard as it's been for you in the past. Right, not seeing any other questions. So at this point, we'll go ahead and wrap up a few minutes early. I thank you for your time. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we hope to talk to you soon. Thank you.